How's it going? Good morning, good afternoon. I don't know when you're watching this, but my name is Mike Donahue and I'm with Value Up. And you guys are Donovan Junior High and High School, Illinois. It's good to see you guys. You are the Bobcats or the Wildcats or both. I went through your website, found some pics. You guys look like you're pretty cool school. Wish I was there live with you right now. It'd be fun. These assemblies have been shut down. Usually I'm the guy that comes to your school and speaks in the gym or the auditorium and delivers a message. I'm going to do that today with the video. Sorry it wasn't live like I said. Hopefully next year I'll be able to come out and hang out with you guys and do our follow-up program with you. But wanted to take some time today to talk about some real life issues. I want to get this across right away. I know most of you that are watching this really do not like it when adults treat you like little kids, so I am not going to do that today. I'm going to be very real and honest with you, and I want to talk with you or to you, not at you. I don't have a bunch of stats and things like that to bore you or to patronize you, so we're going to start off being pretty real. I have a shoe with me right now, not because I am a weirdo, but because I have this theory in life that everybody that's watching this right now has a story, and your story really does matter. I have to say that again because there are people in the world that can't hear that. Like, they're not being disrespectful, they just are to me, but they're being disrespectful to themselves. They don't hear good things about themselves. So I want to say this again. Everybody that's watching this has a story, and your story really does matter. It's kind of weird that I'm the assembly guy because when I was a kid, and I grew up in South Boston, Massachusetts, I did not like assembly programs at all. Part of the reason was because we had the dumb ones. We had the old hippie dude. I'm not trying to make fun of old hippies, but we had this old hippie that would come and like stare at us for like 5 minutes and then sway. And there was no wind in the gym, so we were always like wondering why he was swaying. But he was like, and then he'd stop and go, "Boys and girls, I did drugs." Right? And we were like, "Today?" Like, pretty sure that's illegal, right? And then we had this lady come to our school that she had poodles. I mean, honestly, guys, she'd come. We were in high school, by the way, and she came with poodles and hula hoops, and the poodles would jump through the hoops, and she was having a good time. And for like 20 minutes, she wouldn't even talk to us. And then she stopped, looked at us, and said, "These are drug-free puppies." We were like, "The stoned ones in the van?" Like, I'm just kidding. But, it was just stupid because they would come with these patronizing messages about drugs, and they were just useless. But here's the thing. That's not the reason I didn't like assemblies, because at least they got me out of class. I didn't like assemblies because when I walked into a room with a bunch of people, I would look at them and go, well, their story matters. That person's story matters. I didn't think my story mattered. I'm not going to go into all the details about my story, but my story actually has to do with drugs. I started doing drugs when I was in 6th grade, all the way through to high school. When people ask me why I did drugs, I can tell you what they want me to tell you. They want me to stand here and tell you that I did drugs because of peer pressure. But if I told you that today, that would be a lie. I'd be making that up because that wasn't the issue for me. The issue for me when it came to drugs had to do with one word, and the word was pain. I'm not talking about broken leg pain, physical pain. I'm talking about, I have a memory of my dad leaving my family. I'm an old dude, but I still remember sitting on my front steps watching my father, who was my hero at the time, packing the car, putting boxes, putting suitcases in the back of the car, and he left our family. He came back a couple of years later with a new wife, a new kid, and a whole new world, and I wasn't part of that world. And I don't say that for you to feel sorry for me. I don't want anybody watching this to feel sorry for me. I just know that that day was the beginning of a bunch of really messed up stuff that happened. My mom, I'll just put it this way, I'm not trying to disrespect my mom, but I have to tell you the truth. My mom came from a long line of abuse. My great-grandmother abused my grandfather abused my mom. When it became my mom's turn to have kids, my mom just did what she saw. That was her normal, so she just went with it. And I remember like being afraid of my mom, right? You're not supposed to be afraid of your mom because your mom, gives you brownies, here you go, and all that kind of stuff, nurturing and that. And my mom could be like that, and I think that's what kind of messed me up actually, because if she was all bad all the time, that probably would have been better for me. But she was good, and then all of a sudden, like, she'd flip a switch in her head, or some switch would flip, and we were off to the races. It was dangerous, it was mean, it was cruel. I remember being in elementary school and looking at the clock, and I hated the clock because I didn't want to go home. 2:30 would roll around, I'd get panic attacks, and I just didn't want to go home. My mom had boyfriends, she had other adults she put in our lives that I know would go to jail today if that happened in my house. I'm going to say this one more time. I'm not asking anybody that's watching this to feel sorry for me. I'm just saying I'm in 6th grade and somebody offered me drugs, it had nothing to do with peer pressure. It had everything to do with the fact that I liked the way it made me feel. And you don't get many adults admitting that they like drugs because they don't want to condone drug use, which makes sense to me. But like I said to you earlier, I'm not going to lie to you today. I'm not going to patronize you. I'm going to tell you the truth. I liked drugs. And not because I was getting high. I have kids your age, maybe a little older, but when they were your age, my kids would ask me, like, Dad, what was it like getting high? I don't know, because I don't remember high. I don't remember chasing high. I remember chasing numb. I liked the feeling of not feeling. That's why I will never walk into a gym or an auditorium and put my finger in anybody's face and judge them for doing drugs. I'm not condoning drug use. Don't hear me say that. I'm just saying there are reasons people do what they do. There are reasons people do what they do. I'm not really interested in what people are doing, and that sounds, counterintuitive to why I'm even talking to you today. But it's not, because what you're doing is not as important as why you're doing it, right? Even my own kids, I don't really ask them what they're doing as much as I want to know why. What drove you to that place? What is the belief behind this behavior, right? Behavior is important, but the belief is even more important, right? I don't know if you know, I'm obviously most of you in this room know who Johnny Depp is. A few years back when I started this program, I was looking for quotes, and I guess you could find the experts and presidential commissions and things like that. But Johnny Depp said some things back in the day that I thought resonated a lot with me personally, and then me as a speaker. He said this. He's talking about his own drug use and alcohol abuse. He said, "I just wanted to self-medicate, to numb myself through liquor. It's how I dealt with life, reality, stress, change, sadness, memories. The list goes on." And then here comes the line that resonates with me. "I was really trying to feel nothing." I don't know if you know this about Johnny Depp, but he grew up in South Florida. His parents went through a divorce when he was in high school, so he had drama as a teenager. And he said this about drug use later on. He said this in Rolling Stone magazine. "I think it has less to do with recreation, like partying and stuff, and more to do with the fact we need to escape from our brains. We need to escape from everyday life. It's self-medication, and that's the problem." I think it's interesting that Johnny Depp didn't say we need to escape from tragic things that happen to us, because that would limit my audience right now, right? I mean, obviously there are people that are watching this that have had tragic things happen to you, but most of you have not. But everyday life, like he said, everyday life can beat the living daylights out of you, and nobody knows, for one reason. Look at my face. I'm smiling right now, right? Most of us have learned how to smile on the outside, but we weren't smiling on the inside, right? Like, yeah, I'm doing good. I want to kill you and your family, right? I mean, I'm being funny, but obviously a lot of us do that, right? We put on a smile, we act like everything's okay. And I get that we shouldn't go around telling everybody our deepest, darkest secrets, but I'm going to say this. If you don't have at least one or two people in your life that know you behind the smile, that can be dangerous. I'll give you an example. I got called to a school in Omaha, Nebraska. a boy, a sophomore in high school, died at a party, right? He didn't kill himself. He wasn't killed. Basically, it was an accident. Kind of an accident. He went in and all the kids were taking pills from home and putting them in a big bowl. There was Oxy, there was aspirin, there were just cold medicine, whatever. But this kid, everybody was just taking one out, see what it did. This kid took a handful, like they were M&Ms, put them in his mouth, and he had a heart attack. Whatever he took stopped his heart. He died right there at the party. That was a tragic thing that happened. And then I got called to the school, and I did several assemblies. And then I got a call from his mom, and his mom basically was going down the checklist of all the reasons why this kid shouldn't have done that, right? She was like, well, he was on the baseball team. He seemed like a happy kid. He was getting good grades. He was popular, had a girlfriend, check, right? And then she said this, though, and it caught my attention. She said, "I wish I would have paid attention to what he kept trying to tell me." I said, "What was that?" She goes, "He kept talking about the pressure," and she used the word pressure. She goes, he kept saying that he was under a lot of pressure as a high school student, and she goes, "I didn't listen to him." And I said, "Why didn't you listen to him?" She said, "Because it didn't look like pressure to me." That's a key statement. It didn't look like pressure to me. From her adult perspective, she was looking at her son going, he's fine, he's getting decent grades, he smiles a lot, he's got a girlfriend, baseball, blah, blah, right? She couldn't see behind the smiles. She was looking at what she saw, made her judgment, and then obviously he ended up dead. It's a tragic story. But then she said this to me. She asked me the question. She goes, "Mike, Do you know what pressure he's talking about? And not to be cocky or to rubber face in it or anything like that, I just said, yeah, I do, because it's the same pressure you face. It's the same pressure that I've been seeing for the last 20 years as I go into schools and talk about this stuff. You know by now, when you walk into your school, it's not just a school, right? I mean, when you walk into your school, you're being judged. People don't really walk in your shoes and know what it's like to be you, but they feel free, to judge you and to put you in a box and to label you and go, well, this is what you are because you wear this, because you hang out with this person or whatever. And you come down that hallway, it's like being on a stage, right? I'm on a stage right now. I mean, I'm being filmed doing this. There's a little nervousness, a little pressure, right, to do the right thing. You don't have a camera on you every day, but when you walk into your school, you might as well, because it's like all these eyes on you and you've got to do everything that they want you to do. Post the right stuff, be the right person. And sometimes that pressure is unbelievable. And some of you in this room, some of you watching this today, the pressure isn't coming from painful situations at home. It's the pressure of having to be perfect, having to always put on a smile, having always to be good for the coaches and for your parents. And sometimes that pressure can be overwhelming. Johnny Depp calls it self-medication. I call it reaching for the bottom shelf. But let me explain self-medication to you, okay? Let me explain the reason why people try to cover up pressure or pain. If I had a cut in my arm right now, and it was nasty, it was infected, and it needed medical attention, I could do that, right? I go to the hospital. But you guys know as well as I do that if I let them touch that, which I'm gonna have to make it better, it's going to hurt. Well, what if I don't want it to hurt? What if I don't trust that those people really know what they're talking about? I could just take Tylenol. And for 6 hours, I wouldn't even know I had a cut. It's called masking, right? People do it all the time. They cover up the real issue. The real issue is the cut. Tylenol does nothing for your cut. It just makes you not feel the cut. Well, the drugs and the alcohol that I was doing growing up did nothing for my cut. My dad never came back into my life. My mom is still not very well. Somebody might say, well, the drugs probably helped you not feel it. You could say that, but watch this. If you broke your leg today, I hope you don't, but if you broke your leg today, pain in that moment would be your best friend. You want pain in that moment, because if you don't feel pain in that moment, you're gonna get up and walk on that leg, and obviously you're gonna do a lot more damage to the leg. That's what people do. That's what I did, right? I was walking around in a broken life. I didn't wanna face it. I didn't wanna look at it. I didn't know what to do. Some of you in the same boat, you don't know what to do. You just feel all this pressure, this pain, this stuff that's going on. And so the temptation is to medicate it, right? The temptation is to reach for that bottom shelf, make it go away somehow. And I get that. That's why I'm not judging it, but I do get it. I don't think it's just drugs and alcohol that people self-medicate with either. If you came to me, years ago and said, Mike, if you're gonna go into schools, you're gonna have to talk about cutting. I'm not gonna say a lot about this, but I'm gonna tell you that I was up in Montana and a girl gave me the best explanation on cutting. I didn't know what that was about 20 years ago. I do now, but she came up to me and she gave me a cloth and there was a razor blade in it, and I opened it up and there was like I said, there was a razor blade, and she said, would you help me stop cutting? She asked me if I'd help her stop. And I said, I will try, but I said, sweetheart, tell me why pain takes away pain, because I don't understand cutting. And the best explanation I ever got on cutting was not from Google or from, a book. It was from her. She said, it's like taking emotional pain and it turns it into physical pain. She goes, I can control the physical pain. I can't control the emotional pain. That makes sense to me. I'm not condoning it. I'm not judging it either. I'm just saying I get it. When people are under pain and pressure, they reach, right? They want it to stop. I think another thing that people do, especially teenagers, they date to self-medicate. Not everybody. I'm not one of those adults that thinks you can't be in love as a teenager. I was a youth pastor for a long time. I watched a lot of people, meet, get married, all that. But I have watched also people that didn't like themselves, so they medicated self-worth. Like, I don't like me, so I'll date you. So if you like me, maybe I'll like me. By the way, that's a recipe for getting used, right? I was in Iowa one time. I was in Storm Lake, Iowa, as a matter of fact. And I was standing there, and this girl came up to me, and she was standing next to me, and she goes, I know the guy that I'm dating right now. She goes, I know he's using me. I said, break up with him. She goes, I would rather hear I love you fake than not hear it at all. I'm like, what do you mean by that? She goes, I don't go home to a nice loving family where I'm told I'm loved and I'm cared about. She goes, yeah, I know he's playing me, but But what's my alternative? Not to hear I love you? Listen to that question. What's my alternative? Not to hear I love you? I don't mean to be pretentious at all or weird, but I just want to say this, that I don't think there's a person watching this right now that doesn't want to feel like you matter to somebody. And by the way, if you have to do something to matter, you probably don't matter, right? I mean, if you have to send that pic and then you're going to matter, girls, I mean, you're smarter than that. You know better than that, right? I don't think there's a person in this room that doesn't want to feel like you matter. And it's a great feeling. Like I have that feeling right now. My wife, I know, loves me, right? And my wife's beautiful, and she's my best friend, and she's amazing, right? I'll show you a picture of her. There she is right there. She's the one on the right, by the way. Anyways, that's my wife, and we have a great relationship, and I love the feeling that I matter, right? But watch this. If you don't feel like you matter, if you don't feel, when I say that, I mean valued. If you don't feel valued, you don't go, oh, I'll just sit here and wait for love or value to happen. What do? You go looking for it in the wrong places. Why do I know that? Because I have sisters and myself. My dad left. My mom brought idiots around us, right? I'm not going to judge the people in my life now that went looking for love in the wrong places. I'm not going to judge myself either, because the motive, like I said, there's a belief behind the behavior, right? The belief was I wasn't worth anything, so I went looking for it in the wrong places. I'm not going to criticize myself. I'm not going to judge others because of that. There's a reason people do what they do, right? And I want to say this, and I don't mean to be weird when I say this, but I'm just going to say it. I don't think there's anybody watching this right now that I'll put it this way: if you've been used in your life or are going to be used, there's only one reason, and it's not because the people that are using you are bad people. That may be true, but that's not the issue. It's really not the issue. Here's the issue. The issue is you don't know how valuable you are. If you were to say to me, Mike, there's one thing you could say to teenagers. You can't do your whole thing. Just do one point in your talk. This is what it would be, is the fact that you have to know how valuable you are. Because when you don't know, or if you're looking for value on the outside and you don't know it's on the inside, you're going to get hurt, because all kinds of people on the outside are not trustworthy. They're not trustworthy to really be an ambassador of your value. Who are they, right? They're just people, right? You know your value. You have value because it's intrinsic, which means it's built in, it's yours. And you can't be looking for it on the outside. I'll never forget this girl that came to my office one time. She walks in and there was a bunch of people in my office, and she goes, why do I always attract bad guys, right? Why do I always attract bad guys? So she was onto something. She had 4 or 5 boyfriends in a row that had hurt her, and she was seeing a pattern in her own life that she was attracting these bad guys. So my friends, trying to be nice to her, interrupted her and said, no, it's not you. You know, someday you'll meet the right guy. You know, there's bad guys out there. They were right, but they were wrong too, because what they didn't realize is that she was attracting this stuff, right? Now, and I said that to her. I said, because she looked at me and she wanted me to pipe in. So I said, it's not the guys, it's you. You're the problem. And she said, you don't even know me. I said, I don't need to answer that question. Watch. You attract what you respect. You attract what you respect. If you value and respect who you are, you will automatically attract people who are going to respect and value you. But if you don't value you, if you lay in bed every night and compare yourself with every supermodel or every skinny person or every successful person on the planet, you are going to attract people who are going to use you because they know they can. They're following your lead when it comes to your value. And if I was sitting in the audience right now listening to this, because here's the thing, it's not about getting a boyfriend or a girlfriend. It's about you fighting for your own value. And again, if I was sitting in the room right now listening to this or wherever you are, and somebody said that, I'd be a little mad, because I'd be like, wait, I didn't get the memo. My dad left. My mom didn't do that, right? She didn't reinforce our values. So am I screwed now? Am I out of luck? Because these people, these important people that were supposed to show me I was valuable, didn't. So now am I not valuable? That's the question I would have if I was listening to this. But I already answered that question, because I had to figure out that I had to fight for my own value. And there are people that are watching this right now that you're in that boat. I mean, it's not your fault, but you're in that boat. You have to fight for your own value. I'm gonna make this a little easier for you. I'll make the fight easier for you. This is a book I wrote called Value Up, and it's a great book. It's not a Bible or anything, and it's not religious, but it's just a walkthrough on your intrinsic value. It helps you see that you have value no matter what the outside circumstances have been for you. You have intrinsic value. It's real important. I want you to answer this question for me. How many of you that are watching this have had one of your top 3 worst days of your life in the last couple of years? I don't know, I can't see you, but when I do this live in a school, most of the kids in the room will raise their hand because life gets tough. I mean, especially this year with COVID, it's been crazy. I mean, being locked at home, unable to have friends, or be around friends, unable to go to sporting events or participate in sporting events. I mean, some of you, it's your life. Football is your life. Basketball is your life. Volleyball is your life. Chess is your life. Really? Just kidding. But I mean, all that stuff has come to a halt, and it's been crazy. There's been family issues. I mean, cooped up with people that hard to be cooped up with. I mean, let's just face it. It's been a tough year. So like I said, I didn't see you raise your hand, but I'm assuming that a lot of you raised your hand and said, yeah, it's been, I've had a tough time this last year or two or whatever. I'm going to tell you my toughest day, and it's when I was a sophomore in high school. My mom and I were in a fight, and I'm not going to go into the details of this because if I was live, I probably would, but since it's being taped, I want to be sensitive to her and that kind of thing. But basically, I ended up in the hospital after a domestic violence situation, and I had to get stitched up, and it was a mess. I ended up being removed from the home after that. But basically, that was not the worst day of my life. The next day was. Because the next day I had to walk into my school and I had to pretend that didn't happen. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe it wasn't a knife fight, maybe it was worse. And by the way, don't compare your story with mine or anybody else's. Don't be like, well, his was a knife situation, mine was not that bad. My boyfriend broke up with me, and my girlfriend. Don't put it on a scale, because your pain is your pain, your pressure is your pressure, and people respond to it in different ways. But I think most of you can relate to a day where you had to come into this room or come into your school and walk down those hallways and act like that didn't happen. And that's the reason I do this. Because I know that day lies to you. That day messes you up. That day does damage. That day tells you that you're not worth it. That day mocks your dreams. That day does a lot of damage if you let it. And I just want to say this to you from a person who has been through that day, and then I got up the next morning and several days like that and was able to get through those days. Don't quit. Don't quit. It seems like that day is devastating and lethal, but it's not. You can get through that day. You can. And somebody that has got through that day, and now I'm past that day, I can do things with that day now. That day's taught me some lessons. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but back in England in the 1800s, they had a problem with rats in London. And so they trained these rat terriers, and this is how they did it. Because there was disease and people were dying, so they're like, we got to do something about these rats. Now I'm not talking about rats, right? My daughter has little rats, right, in her cage. These were rats. These things would eat people, right, and disease and all kinds of messed up stuff. So they trained these dogs, these rat terriers, to kill the rats. This is how they did it. They took the dog and the rat and they put them in a barrel, a 50-gallon drum, closed the lid, and let them fight it out. And if the dog came out alive, he would hate rats. And I know that's brutal and it's weird and it's all that, but bottom line is that's how some of you feel right now with COVID and all the stuff that's been going on in your life. It's like being in a barrel with a rat. Like it's tough. It's not easy. But here's the thing: you learn lessons in that barrel. You learn how to fight. You learn how to deal with life, and it stinks at the time. I get it. It's horrible. But when you get out of that barrel and you've got some miles on you and you figured out the barrel like I have, it's a pretty cool feeling now. Because there's an education that some of my friends who grew up in nice homes and had all the stuff, all the trimmings and all that stuff. And by the way, even though that looks good on the outside, that isn't always good on the inside either. This barrel's in there too. But whatever, I learned how to survive my barrel, and now I'm writing books, and now I'm speaking to you, and I'm traveling the country, and I'm doing what I want to do and helping people because I know what it's like to be in there. I know what it's like. And I want to prove to you how I know that it's like. These shoes, 15 years ago when I went into schools and I started this, and I started talking about, stories and that your life matters and that your story matters. What the consequences of that, what I didn't realize was going to happen, was kids going to send me their shoes, which sounds really creepy, but if I was at your school today, you would see a big pile of them. And then I talk about them, I pick up shoes and I tell stories. And what happened was these kids would send me their shoes, write stuff on them, put notes in them. I had a kid one time, I'd been to her school twice, and she actually gave me a shoe. It was a boot too. I went to get the note out of it. A bullet fell out. And she said, the first time you were here, you didn't know this, but that day I was going to go home and kill myself because of a secret she had in her family that she didn't think she could tell anybody. That day she got the courage to tell a counselor. She got help. I showed up at her school 3 years later, and she put in the note, she said, I vowed if I ever saw you again, I would give you the bullet that was supposed to go through my head that day. I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm saying that because there are lots of stories out there and you don't know. I honest to God, that day when I spoke at that school was in Pea Ridge, Arkansas, I didn't know she was sitting there. I know there's stories in the room, but I didn't know specifics. But 3 years later, 4 years later, I find out this girl, had a tragic situation. You don't know who's sitting next to you in your classes. You don't know who's walking down the hall with you and what they went through the night before. And so I'm going to show you this video because these are the shoes that I've collected and some of the notes and some of the things that have been put on them.
I can hold my breath. I can bite my tongue. I can stay awake for days if that's what you want. Be a number one. I can fake a smile. I can force a laugh. I can dance and play the part if that's what you ask. Give you all I am. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. But I'm only human, and I bleed when I fall down. I'm only human, and I crash and I break down. Your words in my head, knives in my heart. You build me up and then I fall apart, 'cause I'm only human. I can turn it on. Be a good machine. I can hold the weight of worlds if that's what you need. Be your everything. I can do it. I can do it. I'll get through it. But I'm only human, and I bleed when I fall down. I'm only human, and I crash and I break down. Words in my head, knives in my heart. You build me up and then I fall apart, 'cause I'm only human. I'm only human. I'm only human. Just a little human. I can take so much till I've had enough.
I don't know if you can relate to any of those slides that you just saw, but I know that a lot of people can, and a lot of people have things and stories that are going on in their life. And like I said, we don't know, who you're walking down the hall with. You don't know last night, even your best friends. You don't know some of the things that they've had to deal with. I've got a shoe I don't have it with me, but I have this shoe of this kid that his name is Matt, and Matt came up to me, and first of all, he scared me because he was huge, right? He was just a massive kid. And so I was like looking at him like, don't hurt me, Anyways, 8th grade, and he was that big. So we were talking about football because that was his dream. And I've got, like, my thing is dreams. Like, whenever I'm around anybody, I want to ask them what their dream is. In fact, you know what? Before I get to Matt, let me ask you guys a question. How many of you that are watching this, and you don't have to raise your hand, but I'm going to ask you, how many of you have a dream? Like, you want to do something with your life, right? If I'm in an auditorium and I ask that question, I have them raise their hand. And I have to, okay, so let me just back up. I have to speak to little kids sometimes, like little kindergarten kids. I don't like it. I'm not trying to be weird, but those kids are crazy. Like, and I'm not good with them. Like, I'm good with you. Like, I go into high school, no problem. Middle school, no problem. Little guys, they scare the living daylights out of me. Where was I? I was in Montana, and I had to talk to all these little kids, right? It was kindergarten to 3rd grade, and I get up there and I go, how many of you guys have a dream? Oh my gosh, these kids went crazy. They were screaming at me and yelling out their future occupation. I want to be an astronaut, all this stuff, right? So everybody started calming down, which is great, but one kid would not shut up, right? He just kept screaming at me. If I'm at a high school, someone's doing that, I boot him, right? This kid, like, what am I gonna do? Kick the little kindergarten kid out, right? So he's screaming at me. So finally, I just went over there and I wanted to punch him. No, I'm just kidding. I went over there, I took the microphone and I put it in his face, and I go, what's your dream, little demon child, right? He goes, just like this, he goes, he sets up like he's gonna fight me. Like, he just gets up and he's like, got his, his fist ready. And I'm like, oh my God, if this kid hits me, like, what am I gonna do? Like, chuck him? I don't know. So he looks at me and he goes, I wanna be a ninja, right? So that was so funny. But then at that same school, there was a girl standing next to me the whole time, grabbing my leg and going, Mister, Mister, Mister. And she was so cute. I go, what? She goes, I have a dream. I go, what is it? She goes, she goes, I want, sorry. She just looked at me, real cute. She goes, I want to be a fireman on the moon. I'm like, thinking in my head, your parents smoke pot, huh? No, I didn't say that. But I was thinking that. I was thinking, don't breathe at home, little girl. No, I'm just messing around. Listen, when I'm in a gym, when I ask that question, it is the most important question that I ask an audience, including you. The question was, if you forgot, I asked you if you had a dream. But I really wasn't asking you about your future occupation. If I was in the gym, this is what I would see, because this happens all the time. When they raise their hand, they all raise their hand, but they raise it slow. Some raise it slow, some don't raise their hand, because they know 2 things that little kids don't know. You know 2 things that little kids don't know. You know life has pain. And I'm gonna say this to you, okay? I'm just gonna put it out there. You don't know me, but if you knew me, you'd know how much I believe about this. The most of the pain that you've gone through in your life has nothing to do with you. It was like mine. Mine got handed down to me. I was born into it, just like you. You were born into it. It's not your fault. She's not drinking because of you. He didn't leave because of you. It has nothing to do with you. You need to stop believing that, because that messes with you, right? The other thing that you know that little kids don't know, you know that not everybody gets to their dream. Now watch this. You got to hear this. Not everybody gets to their dream. You need to hear that, because you know that, because you look around your neighborhood, you look around, your family, and you see people that that are not living their dream anymore. They've stopped. Because you know why? Your dream's on the top shelf. It's not on the bottom shelf. The bottom shelf is where all the drugs, alcohol, self-medication, whatever that is, that's where that is, right? But that top shelf is where your dream is, and that's harder to get to. That's not easy. These teachers that are watching this today, all of them went to college. When they walked onto the campus, they didn't just hand them a degree. They had to fight for it. They had to go after it. They had to work, right? It's up here. That's where that is. If you let go, watch this. If you let go of your top shelf, if you stop dreaming, your hand does not go in your pocket. It goes on the bottom shelf. That's why I don't ask my kids if they're doing drugs. I don't. I had dinner with my daughter last week. I didn't sit her down and go, are you smoking marijuana? You know, I didn't ask her those questions. This is what I asked her. I asked her, are you dreaming? I just talked to her last night, and she was going on and on about her art and how she's helping kids with art and all this stuff. And I could hear her voice. I could hear the excitement. I could hear that top shelf being rattled, right? And so I didn't ask her, oh, well, by the way, are you using drugs? No, because I know she's not. I know that her hand is on the top shelf, so I'm not worried about it being on the bottom shelf. And if I was with you today, I would look you right in the eyes and I'd say that to you. I'm not worried about you. I'm not worried if your hand's down here, if it's up here, because I know it's busy, right? And I know some of you know people in your life that they've stopped dreaming. Their hand is not on their top shelf anymore. And it's a sad thing to watch, because you know it could be different, right? So Matt, I thought we were done talking about football. We were done. So I walked over to my computer to pack up, and he followed me over there, and he just looked at me and he goes, hey, can I talk to you privately? And I said, sure. So we stepped aside, and as everybody was around, he goes, I had to quit the football team. And I said, Matt, you just got done telling me that that's your dream. You had to quit? He said, yeah, I had to. I said, why? He goes, you're the second person who's going to know the truth. He goes, my coach knows, now you're going to know. He goes, I can't walk down the hallway of this school without being called gay, fag, weak. He goes, they all think I quit because I'm not tough enough to play football. I said, why'd you quit? He said, because my mom's an alcoholic and I don't want anybody to know. I just looked at him and I said, take me for a walk in those shoes. What's that like for you? Can I stop this for a minute? And I want to say this to you. I'm not stupid. You're not stupid. We know all this racial, social unrest that's gone on this summer and fall, into this year. I want to say this to you. I don't get my opinion about racism from the news or from social media, Fox News, CNN, Twitter, Instagram. I don't. There's a lot of information on those mediums that I just mentioned. There's tons, right? TikTok, there's tons. I don't get my information from them. This is where I get my information about racism. His name is Dan Torres, Reggie Dabbs, Andre Anderson. These are people who are black, who are Hispanic, who are my best friends. And I just asked them the question, what's it like to be you? Dan Torres is my best friend. He's also a cop. And so I asked him that too. What's it like to be you right now? What's it like to be you? I think we should all get in the habit of asking that question. Not, hey, what does Twitter think? What is the popular feeling right now out there about X situation, right? I don't care about what the media thinks. So I don't. I care about what my friends think. And I'm in the habit right now in my life, I've been for a long time, of asking that question. What is it like to be you? And when I asked Matt that question, I said, what's it like to be an 8th grade boy with an alcoholic mom? He said, every night when I go home, I open up my front door, I walk in, and I'm scared that she's going to be passed out on the couch. I'm scared that she's not going to feed us at night because she's too drunk. I said, Matt, what's a bad day? He goes, a bad day is when we can't find her. I said, what do you mean? He goes, there's days where she'll hook up with a guy on a Friday, we won't see her till Tuesday, and it's messed up. You don't know me, but I want to say this. When I get those stories, which I get pretty much every school I go to, on some level I get a story like that, I don't want to be one of those adults that says, hey, you know what, good luck, I'll give him a hug. I want to say something that matters. So this is what I said to Matt. I looked at Matt and I said, Matt, go back on the football team. Like, Mike, why would you tell him that? Like, is football that important? Yep, when it's your dream it is. Because watch this. You can't tell me that his mom sat in an assembly program like this and her dream was to neglect her family, abuse alcohol, and screw everything up. That was not her dream. She sat in an assembly like this. She had her hand on something. I'll guarantee at some point in that woman's life, she had her hand on a dream. But then she did this. She took it off, and now he's paying the price. And some of you are paying the price because people have took their hand off their dream, right? Don't let that be said about you. Don't let you be the person that, your kids someday are going to be going, well, my dad had a dream, but then bam, bam, bam. And, next thing you know, that kid's paying the price. Don't be that. I'm not doing that. I'm not perfect, but my kids are loved, and I'm investing in their lives, and I've been in their lives their whole life. And so they don't get to tell that story. They have their own stories, but that one, right? So Matt looks at me and he goes, I'm going back on the football team. He goes, I'm waiting for my stepdad to leave. And he started looking around the room to make sure nobody was hearing this part. I said, what? He goes, the real reason I quit is because my stepdad gets home before I do and I'm at practice and he beats up my mom. He goes, I quit the football team so that jerk would leave her alone. He goes, he won't touch her if I'm home. I'm like, I believe you. He was big. Here's the thing. If I had that whole football team in front of me, can I tell you what I'd say to those guys? I'm not mad at them. I'm not going to yell at them. Anybody that's calling that kid a name because he made that decision to quit the football team and they didn't know why, they just assumed why, I would sit them in a room and again, not mad at them, but I would say, listen, I'm going to have a little man-to-man or man-to-woman or whatever, person-to-person conversation with you. You're calling this kid a name, you're degrading him because he doesn't play football. You don't think he's tough enough, right? So let me ask you a question. Do you think you're tough enough to be him? Because I played football. And when we played football, we got helmets, right? We got a helmet, we got pads, we got little girls yelling our name when we came on the field. When that kid walks into his kitchen and sees his mom being beat up and he protects her at all costs, that's tough. That's tougher than football. Sorry, I don't mean to, insult any of you, but that's tougher than football. That's controlled violence. That's violence you can't control. He just has to protect his mom. And so I'm just going to say this. You don't think he goes to your school? Of course he does. You don't think some of the girls I talked about that have to look for love in the wrong places because their stepdad sees them as a girlfriend instead of a daughter, you don't think those things exist at your school? At Donovan High School, middle school, junior high, whatever? Of course they do. Of course they do. They're just hidden behind the smile. They're hidden behind the facade that people put up because they can't trust you, right? Wouldn't it be awesome if your school was a place where people felt emotionally safe, they felt like they could be themselves, that they could process life in front of you and not fear that you're going to judge or put them down? That would be an awesome school. And I think your school is capable of doing that, but it just takes some of you. I did my job. I came here today through video to tell you that it can be done, but you have to have the guts enough to, first of all, care about yourself and then care about others. All right, listen, I'm out of time. I had a blast talking to you guys today. Donovan, high school, Illinois, middle school, junior high, I don't know what you call yourselves, but hopefully I'll get to come back live and hang out with you. This book, Value Up, you can go to our website and download a free copy of this off our student section. It's value-up.org. Go through, find the student section up there and scroll down and you'll be able to get on our site and get a free book downloaded to your tablet or to your phone or whatever. But thanks for being awesome today, and hopefully you're staying warm. I'm in Tennessee today and it's snowing out. They don't get snow, so they had 6 inches and they shut the whole state down. It's crazy. So yeah, whatever. All right, good to see you guys. Have a great day. God bless. Boom.